the glory of power, the deadly silence, and bloody betrayals. The life of a mafia boss is not just legend, but a journey between triumph and death. Are you brave enough to step into this underworld? In the misty veil of the underworld, the name Mafia Boss always evokes a sense of awe and dread. To the outside world, they are shadowy figures walking the razor's edge between absolute power and inevitable doom. Behind the glitter of expensive suits, lavish banquets, and the spotlight of media fascination lies a reality soaked in blood, where loyalty is bought with silence and betrayal ends with only one verdict: death. The Mafia is not merely a criminal organization. It is an entire universe, woven from threads of power, loyalty, and spilled blood. At its core lies the oath of silence, omerta, an invisible chain binding every soul who dares to enter. Those who break that chain are met with the most merciless punishment, for the price of betrayal is nothing less than obliteration in the shadows. For decades, the media has been enthralled by this living tragedy. Men like Al Capone and Lucky Luciano have transcended the realm of crime to become legends, immortalized in films and books, where the line between fact and fiction blurs into a haunting narrative. Audiences are both mesmerized and horrified, drawn to the stories of men who dared to defy both the law and destiny itself. In the eyes of the public, a mafia boss is a dark monarch, revered and feared in equal measure. They exist within intricate webs of influence, where every decision is paid for in blood. A handshake might forge an alliance, or it might conceal a death sentence, waiting silently to strike. The world of the mafia is one of paradox, alluring yet terrifying, romanticized yet deadly. It awakens curiosity in those tempted by danger, but warns with a chilling truth. Once you step inside, there is no return. The word mafia echoes like a ghostly whisper from the shadows, evoking the image of a parallel world hidden within society itself. A realm built upon blood, power, and absolute silence. To outsiders, it may be labeled as organized crime, but to those sworn to its cause, it is a kingdom of shadows, governed by immutable laws. Born in the turbulence of Sicily, the mafia first emerged as a response to chaos and lawlessness. At its inception, it appeared as a protector dispensing justice where governments failed. But soon, its hand grew drenched in blood as power turned to ambition, and ambition into a ruthless machine crushing all in its path. Streets, markets, politics, even the courts themselves became pawns in its deadly game of control. Through waves of Italian immigration, the mafia crossed the ocean, taking root in New York, Chicago, and Las Vegas. Here, it not only carried the darkness of its homeland, but fused it with new ambitions, forging an empire that infiltrated every layer of life. Politicians, unions, businessmen, any could be puppets on their strings or enemies marked for elimination. Its structure resembled an indestructible pyramid. At the pinnacle stood the Don, the supreme arbiter of life and death. Beneath him were the underbosses, capos, soldiers, and associates. Each held a role, each link bound by the sacred vow of silence, omerta. In this world of shadows, loyalty was not a choice. It was survival itself. A single misstep, one careless word, could summon the swift and merciless judgment of death, and therein lies its deadly allure. The public is both horrified and entranced, perceiving the mafia as an unsolvable riddle etched into human history. People are drawn to its tales of power, betrayal, and survival, where a smile may conceal the intent to kill, and a handshake may mark the end of a man's life. The mafia is not merely a criminal enterprise. It is a living nightmare, a blood-soaked tragedy that continues to unfold, a place where darkness triumphs over light and secrets are whispered through the generations, keeping the legend alive in every shadowed corner of the world. In the lurking darkness of the underworld, the core operations of the mafia function like the lifeblood of a vast criminal empire. They seep into every corner of society, leaving their mark wherever power and money intersect. Drug trafficking, gambling, extortion, money laundering, loan sharking, these are not mere crimes, but colossal gears in a blood-soaked machine. And every gear, if jammed, must be replaced with a human life. At the heart of this machine lies omerta, the vow of silence, cold and absolute. It is not simply a rule, but an invisible chain that binds every member. To break it is to invite swift and merciless death, a punishment designed to serve as a chilling warning. Through this brutal enforcement, the mafia endures as a fortress, seemingly impenetrable, where betrayal is extinguished before it can ever spark into flame. The danger does not only come from enemies outside, but from within. Every member knows that a glance held too long, a word spoken at the wrong moment, can turn them into the next target. In the Mafia, trust is never freely given. It is forged in blood. A soldier can only truly become one of the family after spilling blood for the organization in a grim initiation known as making your bones. The price of loyalty is equally merciless. Once a man steps inside, there is no turning back. Those suspected of betrayal often vanish without a trace, their bodies buried along with the secrets they carried. In a twisted sense, this only strengthens the power of silence, for in this world, fear itself becomes the deadliest weapon. Thus, the Mafia's underworld becomes a lethal game, a stage where survival hangs by a thread and mistakes are paid for in blood. Outsiders may marvel at the wealth and power, dazzled by the spectacle of its empire, but those within know the truth. Behind the glittering facade lies a blazing abyss where every step is shadowed by danger, and every decision may be the last. When speaking of the Mafia, one cannot ignore the names that have become icons, bosses who left the world both terrified and enthralled. Al Capone, the Scarface of Chicago, stands as the clearest embodiment of splendor entwined with brutality. From a streetwise Brooklyn kid, he climbed to the pinnacle of power, turning the city of Chicago into a grand stage of violence and extravagance. The 1920s, an era fueled by bootleg liquor, saw Capone amass immense wealth from alcohol smuggling, gambling, and prostitution. Lavish mansions, glittering cars, and endless parties painted the portrait of a dark monarch. Yet behind the glamour lay a blood-stained hand responsible for countless massacres. In the end, Capone did not fall by gunfire, but by something far more banal: tax evasion. That conviction struck like a cruel twist of fate, ending the reign of a criminal legend. If Capone symbolized ruthless opulence, then John Gotti wrote a different, even flashier chapter of underworld history. Known as the Teflon Don, his very nickname reflected his arrogance in the face of the law. In the 1980s, Gotti emerged like a movie star, striding through New York in expensive suits, flashing a confident smile before the media. He turned courtrooms into stages, mesmerizing the public while simultaneously igniting their hatred. Yet beneath that dazzling facade lay the reality, a reign of executions and purges that kept the Gambino family firmly under his iron grip. Gotti ruled with a velvet glove lined with steel, spreading fear across New York. But in 1992, the Teflon shield shattered. Convicted of murder and racketeering, Gotti was sentenced to life in prison, his bloody empire collapsing with him. The stories of Capone and Gotti are not just blood-soaked chapters in the annals of crime. They are proof of the deadly allure of power. The public may idolize mafia bosses as kings of the shadows, but the truth is far more merciless. The brighter the glory, the darker and more tragic the fall. In the mafia world, triumph is merely a mask for inevitable ruin. The life of a mafia boss is never as simple as sitting atop a throne of power. It is a deadly game where the ruler is constantly hunted by the very men who once swore loyalty. Betrayal and internal purges are the blades that forever hang above a boss's head, ready to fall at any moment. In the world of the mafia, ambition never sleeps. An underboss can turn into a challenger, a capo might secretly ally with enemies, and a soldier who seemed loyal may suddenly become an informant for the police. Tension brews in whispers, suspicious glances, and clandestine meetings in the shadows, each spark capable of igniting a storm of bloodshed. And when that storm breaks, punishment is almost always delivered in crimson. The assassination of Paul Castellano remains a chilling testament to the brutality of power struggles. As the leader of the Gambino family, Castellano favored white-collar crime over the violent street tactics of his predecessors. Yet this very detachment convinced many subordinates he was weak, out of touch with the streets that fed their empire. On a cold evening in 1985, Castellano collapsed outside Sparks Steakhouse in Manhattan, gunned down in a hit orchestrated by John Gotti's faction. That moment did not just end a reign, it revealed a grim truth. In the mafia, the deadliest enemy is often not the one across the battlefield, but the one sitting beside you. Fear of betrayal becomes the heartbeat of the organization. A mafia boss must always remain vigilant, not only against rival families, but against his own men. For in the underworld, power is never permanent. It exists only until someone ruthless enough dares to seize it with blood. For a mafia boss, the most dangerous enemy is not always rival gangs. It is the law and its enforcers, relentless steel arms tightening the noose day by day. If betrayal from within sows fear, then the pursuit of law enforcement is the tightening net that keeps every boss living in perpetual tension. In the underworld, a single phone call might be tapped, a secret meeting shadowed, and a soldier who once swore loyalty could suddenly be an informant working for the FBI. Wiretaps, undercover operations, and insiders willing to sell their souls in exchange for freedom all converge into a silent storm, threatening to sink even the mightiest criminal empire. A mafia boss knows well, one piece of damning evidence, one credible testimony, and an entire family can collapse like a castle of sand. For this reason, bosses constantly strive to stay one step ahead, bribing officials, constructing counterintelligence networks, and planting spies to watch those who watch them. It is a game of blood and cunning, where survival depends on striking first. Yet even the shrewdest and most ruthless cannot always escape. The legal trap that toppled the legendary Al Capone serves as a chilling reminder. The man who drenched Chicago in violence was not undone by blood on his hands, but by cold numbers in tax ledgers. That downfall carved a lesson into the mafia's history. The law wears many masks, and slow death behind bars can be more terrifying than a bullet in the dark. In the endless duel between mafia and law enforcement, a boss may live like a king in the shadows, but he knows that every feast, every call, every step might mark the beginning of his end. The world remains perpetually dramatic, for the stronger a boss's power grows, the tighter the grip of the law becomes. The world of the mafia never stands still. It evolves with each passing decade, leaving a stark divide between the old-school bosses and the modern crime lords. If the mafia of the 20th century operated as a tightly sealed machine controlled by iron-fisted leaders, the mafia of today has become a fluid network, adapting to globalization and technology. Yet one thing remains constant: its danger, now more brutal than ever. The old-school bosses, Capone, Luciano, Genovese, were the embodiment of iron discipline. They ruled through fear, clinging to rigid traditions where the vow of silence, omerta, was the ultimate weapon. In the shadows of New York and Chicago streets, a single nod from the boss could seal the fate of dozens. They were like hidden kings, rarely seen in public, and it was this very mystery that made the world shudder at the whisper of the word mafia. But as time marched forward, a new breed emerged: the modern bosses, cloaked as businessmen, philanthropists, even celebrities. No longer confined to the shadows, they learned to manipulate media and even social networks to build an image of legitimacy. Behind those glamorous photos and carefully crafted personas, however, they still control empires of drugs, weapons, and sprawling transnational crime networks. The danger lies in the fact that today's mafia is no longer just a family in one city, but an underground conglomerate with branches across the globe. Where old bosses ruled with an iron hand and raw intimidation, modern bosses delegate to specialists, hackers, counterfeiters, expert money launderers. They are no longer just gunmen. They are economic manipulators, data thieves, and masters of disappearing from global surveillance systems. This evolution has transformed the mafia a new kind of monster, and more lethal than ever before. In the past, you might spot the shadow of a boss on the street and know that death was near. Today, you may not realize it at all, until the world around you has already been consumed by their silent power. The world of the mafia never stands still. It evolves with each passing decade, leaving a stark divide between the old-school bosses and the modern crime lords. If the mafia of the 20th century operated as a tightly sealed machine, controlled by iron-fisted leaders, the mafia of today has become a fluid network, adapting to globalization and technology. Yet one thing remains constant: its danger, now more brutal than ever. The old-school bosses, Capone, Luciano, Genovese, were the embodiment of iron discipline. They ruled through fear, clinging to rigid traditions, where the vow of silence, omerta, was the ultimate weapon. In the shadows of New York and Chicago streets, a single nod from the boss could seal the fate of dozens. They were like hidden kings, rarely seen in public, and it was this very mystery that made the world shudder at the whisper of the word mafia. But as time marched forward, a new breed emerged, the modern bosses, cloaked as businessmen, philanthropists, even celebrities. No longer confined to the shadows, they learned to manipulate media and even social networks to build an image of legitimacy. Behind those glamorous photos and carefully crafted personas, however, they still control empires of drugs, weapons, and sprawling transnational crime networks. The danger lies in the fact that today's mafia is no longer just a family in one city, but an underground conglomerate with branches across the globe. Where old bosses ruled with an iron hand and raw intimidation, modern bosses delegate to specialists, hackers, counterfeiters, expert money launderers. They are no longer just gunmen. They are economic manipulators, data thieves, and masters of disappearing from global surveillance systems. This evolution has transformed the mafia into a new kind of monster, more elusive and more lethal than ever before. In the past, you might spot the shadow of a boss on the street and know that death was near. Today, you may not realize it at all, until the world around you has already been consumed by their silent power.